Ian strode quickly across the hospital hall, suddenly realizing he didn't know where to go. He grabbed the shoulders of the first woman in a white coat, who gasped and looked at him with frightened eyes. "Rachel! Rachel Mobley! What ward is she in? Where is she?" His voice hissed and trembled, bouncing on syllables like an unstable cardiogram. The doctor pursed her lips, looking confused at the strange man. He shook her weakly, unable to control himself. "Rachel Mobley! She was brought here 2 days ago! My bride!" he nearly shouted. Hearing the word bride, the woman seemed to snap out of her stupor. A flickering of understanding and even pity crossed her face. "Ah, yes, 2nd floor, Ward 13. The man didn't even thank her, immediately running for the stairs. Waiting for the elevator seemed unforgivably long. He kept repeating the room number. 13, a damn dozen. Ian wasn't superstitious, but he followed some rules due to his profession. As a sailor, he knew a ship that changed its name was haunted by bad luck. He always stepped onto the deck with his right foot and never whistled on the ship. These were habits rather than real fears. The captain once told him that a red sky in the evening promised good luck, but a red sky at sunrise meant trouble. Now, Ian involuntarily remembered standing on the ship's deck early one morning, looking at the horizon. They were close to home. He thought about how soon their crew would go ashore for 3 whole months. Some of these sea wolves were invited to Ian and Rachel's wedding, set to take place in a week. Ian couldn't wait to get home and embrace his bride. She had had her bachelorette party planned for that night, while the groom's friends would meet a day later. At one point, Ian looked up at the rising sun. It was red, so red it seemed as if thick blood, not seawater, lay beyond. Ian remembered the captain's words, but paid no attention. What failures could await him? Nonsense. After all, he would soon see his bride, embrace her, hold her close. Soon he'd call her his wife, his sweet, beloved Rachel. At that moment he was the happiest man on earth, and thought nothing could change that. How wrong he was. The ship was delayed by bad weather. When the sailors finally overcame the elements and dropped anchor in their home port, terrible news awaited. Rachel was hospitalized. His future mother-in-law, Mrs. Mobley, called. Her voice, torn by excitement and tears, explained, "Rachel was coming from the club after her bachelorette party. She was attacked from behind, dragged into an alley between establishments. There are no people there, just garbage cans from restaurants and stores, pipes and such. She didn't see who attacked her. The police found no traces of the crime." Ian was terrified. "How is she?" "Better," said the woman, "but we'll have to postpone the wedding. Her face... Ian, you'll see for yourself, but please stay calm. She doesn't want to look in the mirror. She cries a lot. She's afraid to see you. She says she's become ugly." Ian swallowed hard, then whispered so quietly he wasn't sure if he'd spoken aloud. I didn't love her for her beauty." Of course, Ian, who fell for Rachel at first sight, had first noticed her eyes and smile, but he loved her for her soul. I know, darling," Mrs. Mobley wailed. Ian found out which hospital she was in and, hanging up the phone, rushed to the address. He didn't even change his clothes, setting off in his navy uniform. Before the door to the ward, remembering Mrs. Mobley's words, Ian froze for a moment, gathering his wits. He wasn't afraid to look into his fiancée's face. He feared hurting her with a careless glance or nervous movement she might misinterpret. He longed to enter, unable to bear the anticipation any longer, but hesitated when he heard his bride crying and her mother speaking. "No," Mrs. Mobley said loudly, almost shouting. "No, Rachel, you won't say anything to him. Men don't forgive such things.
But I'm not guilty of anything, Rachel sobbed. I didn't cheat on him.
Yes, I understand that.
You understand, but will Ian?
The woman objected. Rachel, he's a man. They have a different perspective on some things. You know how many years I worked in the hospital as an anesthesiologist. I can tell you countless stories of men leaving their wives after their surgeries, like hysterectomies or ovarian removals. Can you imagine? They claimed their wives were no longer women, inferior. And you, Rachel, I wish you well. That's why I'm telling you the bitter truth. No man will take you as a wife after you've been abused. You'll be damaged goods to them now. Do you understand?
But Ian loves me. He will understand,
Rachel sobbed. Oh, stop it. He loved you when you were beautiful and desirable. And now, who knows how everything will turn out? Come on, pull yourself together. Don't cry. He called us, so he'll be here soon. Stop crying. I'll talk to the doctors, so they won't discuss the details. I have some acquaintances here. Mrs. Mobley continued mumbling, instructing her daughter on how to act. But Ian tuned out the nonsense. His anger boiled within him. He respected Mrs. Mobley, but now he was furious with her. The door burst open, slamming against the wall before rebounding. Ian raised his hand to stop it from hitting him, as if the door were retaliating for the rough treatment.
Ian!
Mrs. Mobley leapt to her feet, still clutching the napkin she'd used to wipe her daughter's face.
You're here already? So fast?
Rachel froze momentarily, then shrieked and buried her face in her hands. Ian crossed the room in one stride and fell to his knees before his bride. He longed to pry her hands from her face and look into her eyes, but didn't dare. He gazed at Rachel, struck by her fragility. How could anyone do such a thing to her? What kind of monster was capable of that? Ian vowed to uncover the culprit's identity, but for now he pushed thoughts of vengeance aside, burying them in a dark corner of his soul. He focused on his trembling bride. Rachel, he called softly. Rachel, I love you. I love you beyond measure. And I will love you no matter what. Do you hear me? It's not your fault, Rachel. Rachel sobbed. He embraced her gently, drawing her to his chest. Ian stroked her back and quivering shoulders, kissing the crown of her tangled hair. Rachel lowered her hands from her face but pressed it against her fiancé's chest. She clutched his shirt, clinging to him. Rachel, I'll never leave you. We'll get married, do you hear? I can't imagine anyone but you by my side. I want you always near me. I want to come home to you. I want you to be the mother of our children. I want to grow old with you and stroll in the park like that sweet elderly couple we always see on weekends. Remember them? Rachel nodded.
I love you, Ian. Further than touchline,
she murmured through her tears. Ian's lips quivered in a faint attempt at a smile. It was their private joke. Rachel and Ian had met at the institute. Ian was a third-year student who played soccer. Rachel was a freshman who'd come with her friends to watch a match. The girls were cheering for Ian's opponents. Rachel's friend's boyfriend was their goalkeeper, as it turned out. Ian noticed the blue-eyed blonde immediately. He fell in love at first sight. There was no explaining the feeling. It was like a shot to the heart. Bam! And that was it. He recalled how dismayed he'd been to see the girl wearing a red t-shirt, the colour of his rivals. Ian himself wore a blue uniform. As soon as the match ended, he dashed to the stands and blurted out, without even a greeting, "Blue would suit you better." Rachel turned around in surprise. Her gaze meeting the sapphire-coloured eyes of a young man. She smiled, despite having heard the brown-eyed brunette's words perfectly well. Her friends murmured and giggled, prompting Rachel to glare at them, a slight blush colouring her cheeks. "Blue colours," Ian swallowed, tapping his chest with his fist. "Also, my jersey number. It'll suit you too. And my last name." The stranger's blonde eyebrows twitched at such a bold statement, but Ian stood firm. Years later, after graduating from university, Ian proposed to Rachel on the soccer field. When Rachel asked him to kick the ball as far as he liked her, Ian sent it soaring over the touchline. Thus, their inside joke was born. To finance their wedding and mortgage, Ian took a job on a merchant ship. Rachel, meanwhile, worked in her field as a marketer. Their future seemed bright, but storm clouds loomed on the horizon. Rachel allowed Ian to see her face, though she avoided his eyes. Had she looked, she would have seen a tempest of emotions: anger, pain, despair, rage, and fear brewing within her fiancé. "Rachel, tell me everything," he urged. "Who did this? Where?" Rachel hesitated, recalling her mother's advice. Mrs. Moberly had tactfully left, giving the young couple privacy. Taking a deep breath, Rachel decided to tell the truth. "It happened at my bachelorette party. I was wearing a white dress and veil, short, but not excessively so. My knees were barely showing. The police suggested it was because of how I looked, but I didn't even choose the dress. The girls gave it to me, you know." Rachel wrung her hands anxiously. Ian gently took them, pressing them to his lips to quell her trembling. "It's not your fault," he insisted. "Neither you nor the length of your dress gives anyone the right to—" He couldn't finish, only squeezing her fingers weakly. The absence of her wedding ring was painfully apparent. Rachel hadn't reached that part of the story yet. She continued. "I called a cab, but it stopped on the wrong side of the building. As I was walking around to find it, dialing the driver's number," she shuddered, reliving the moment, "someone grabbed me from behind and shoved me into an alley. It smelled strange. They knocked me down and wouldn't let me look around or scream, pinned me to the ground. He grabbed my hair and—" She shook her head, unable to voice the rest. "Afterward I couldn't stand up. He kissed my cheek mockingly, told me to say hello to my fiancé, and took my engagement ring as a trophy." Her voice quavered. "I managed to hit him with my last bit of strength. He groaned and dropped something, but then he heard people nearby and ran away. I tried to call for help, but I passed out." Rachel shared a few more harrowing details that made Ian's blood boil. She had been left in a dark alley behind a dumpster, like discarded trash. Some homeless people who frequented the area for restaurant leftovers found her. At first, they thought she wasn't breathing, but then she moved. These strangers showed more humanity than some. They covered her with their clothes, dirty as they were, and took her to the police. From there, Rachel was taken to the hospital. "They examined me, Ian," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It wasn't just abuse. He damaged something inside me. The doctor isn't sure if I'll ever be able to have children." She lowered her head, hiding behind a curtain of hair, as tears fell from her cornflower blue eyes. "So, think about whether you still want me." Ian gently tilted her chin up, meeting her gaze. He kissed her with infinite tenderness, his breath warm against her lips as he whispered, "I need you. Only you." Ian was overwhelmed with pain for his fiancée and consumed by guilt. He felt he should have been there to protect her. After spending the day with his bride, Ian set out in the evening on a mission. Rachel had explained that she'd given a statement to the police, but they seemed eager to sweep the matter under the rug. Ian went to the station, only to confirm that no one was taking action.
"Bloody hell. So you're the fiancée, eh?" a police officer said dismissively. "We sympathise, of course, but isn't it obvious? The girl was out clubbing, excited about getting married. She probably hooked up with someone and is now spinning tales."
Ian was on the verge of grabbing him by the throat. Consequences be damned. Thankfully, another employee, a young man, pulled Ian away.
"Easy now," he hissed, trying to subdue the enraged Ian. "Let's step outside and talk this through. You won't get any help in here."
Sensing the man's unusual tone, Ian relented. He allowed himself to be led outside, where he even accepted a cigarette from the law enforcement officer.
"I'm Frank Reed. I'm new here, but I've already figured out how things work," he admitted. "No one's going to investigate your fiancée's case. They're saying well, you know. And don't glare at me like that. I'm not the one who made that decision."
Frank took a drag, kicked a stone, then continued.
"But here's the strange part. She's not the first. Similar incidents have happened in this neighbourhood, but our higher-ups turn a blind eye." He frowned, scratching the back of his head. "What if there was more? Thing is, few victims report to the police. They're scared, afraid of gossip, of not being believed, of being blamed, and as you can see, with good reason."
Ian listened intently, then tapped the ash off his cigarette.
"Why are you telling me this?"
Frank hesitated, then confessed.
"I had an aunt. A good woman. She wasn't believed either. Then at her funeral, they all cried." He paused reluctantly. "She took her own life, couldn't cope with it."
"I am sorry," Ian said sincerely. Frank nodded, flicking away more ash.
"Yeah, it was long ago. I was just a kid."
Ian licked his lips, then looked at his unexpected ally.
"Where did it happen? I want to go there." "You won't find anything. There are always homeless people around at night, and our guys have already combed the area," Frank said. "I still want to go."
"Stubborn, aren't you?" Frank relented. He gave directions, then bid farewell, pausing to offer his phone number.
"In case you need anything, give me a call."
He waved goodbye.
"Thank you," Ian said earnestly. "Good luck, and take care of your girl, okay?"
Ian nodded. An hour later he stood at the scene, unsure of his next move. He scanned the ground for overlooked clues, then searched for any cameras nearby. As he was about to leave the alley to survey the surrounding area, a rustle caught his attention. The man spun around, muscles tense but quickly relaxed. A child, a boy in dirty clothes, was staring at him. The boy seemed terrified, more so than usual. Ian noted that street kids typically acted more brazenly, begging or pilfering, but this one was frozen, numb with fear, lips and fingers trembling, knees knocking together.
"It's okay, I won't hurt you."
Ian raised his hands, palms out. The child clearly didn't trust the stranger's words. He wanted to flee but couldn't. His legs wouldn't cooperate. Ian's thoughts turned to the plight of this street child. Why wasn't anyone looking after him? Couldn't he be placed in an orphanage or found adoptive parents?
"Where are you from? Do you have parents?" Ian asked. "Do you need help?"
The boy shook his head weakly, but Ian caught the motion. A sombre thought crossed the sailor's mind. Rachel and I might not be able to have children, yet someone discards them like unwanted kittens. Feeling a mix of exhaustion, boredom and pity for the child, the man reached for his wallet. He pulled out a bill, then looking at the boy, took out more.
"Here," he said, "buy yourself, I don't know, food, clothes."
The boy remained still, eyes fixed on the money. Ian had toiled hard for that cash, but now it seemed inconsequential. With a sigh, he crouched down and placed the bills on the grimy ground.
"There, take it after I'm gone, all right?"
As Ian prepared to leave the alley, he suddenly shuddered. For a moment he thought he glimpsed Rachel's veil. It was just a torn white rag, but his heart
had already leapt to his throat, pulse pounding in his temples. Ian staggered, realizing he hadn't slept or eaten in far too long. The grueling day at sea, followed by an emotional turmoil on land, had taken its toll. The relentless, nervous tension was finally catching up on him. Ian would have collapsed for certain, but suddenly he felt support. The boy. He'd sprung up, ignoring the money, and caught the stranger with his frail, thin arms. "Are you okay?" the boy asked in a small voice. Yes. Help me sit down," Ian requested. The boy helped the man sit on the curb, leaning against a nearby wall. Ian caught his breath, then looked at the kid who still lingered. "What's your name?" "Cole." "Cole, I'm Ian. Tell me, Cole, do you help everyone in dark alleys?" He mumbled, puzzled. Ian was already on edge, and now there was this kid. What should he do with him? He couldn't just leave him on the street, but he also couldn't drag him to the nearest orphanage, and he didn't trust the cops either. "No, only you," said the boy. "What if I was some kind of jerk?" Ian muttered. "Just distracting you to grab you." "Then I'd be trapped," Cole said without blinking. Ian couldn't hold back a chuckle, but then frowned again. "This is a dangerous alley. Don't come here, okay? It's no place for kids." "I know," the kid said suddenly. "I've seen things." Ian nodded, not immediately grasping the boy's words, but then shuddered. "What did you see?" The boy hesitated, reluctant to answer. He took a step back, glancing at the money. He seemed to be considering snatching it and running, but somehow he didn't. "Listen, kid, something terrible happened to someone very close to me recently, my fiancée," Ian began. "Tell me, did you see anything like that?" The boy pressed his lips together, then nodded. Ian felt his heart sink and his palms and back grew clammy. "Tell me," he pleaded. The boy was still hesitant, but then his gaze fell on the man's uniform. "You're a sailor, right?" Ian was anxious, not understanding why it mattered who he was. Still, he mustered patience, grasping at straws, and nodded. "Yes, Cole, I'm a sailor, but on a merchant ship." The boy smiled, his eyes shining with delight. "And you sail on a ship, a big one?" Cole asked in awe. "Yes, it's a big one. It's called Heart of the Wind." Ian answered patiently. "So what did you see, Cole?" The boy shifted from foot to foot, glancing over his shoulder at the alley's exit. It was summer, so the street lights weren't on yet, but darkness was falling on this moonless night. The shadows seemed to creep closer, reaching out with their tendrils from the corners. "I sometimes sleep here when it's warm," the boy confessed in a whisper. "Over there, around the corner, there's a restaurant here and a kind cook. Lee gives me dinner. I only come during his shift because the others shoo me away. The other day, I found a phone here. I was thrilled. It's really cool with a big screen. I didn't know what to do, so I hid it. It turned off. Then at night, as I was falling asleep, some strangers came. They were searching for something, turning everything upside down, swearing a lot. They noticed old Ben." "Who?" Ian pressed, trying to catch every detail. "Ben also lives on the street," explained the boy. "He's very kind and often tells me stories. He feeds the dogs too. He sometimes sleeps here next to the pipes. They woke him up and started yelling and even beat him, but he didn't do anything to them. They asked if he'd seen the phone. I knew right away they meant that phone. But I was so scared. I was even afraid to breathe. I hid from them. They took Ben away, somewhere, and he never came back." "Do you have the phone?" asked Ian, hardly daring to hope. His throat was dry. "Yes, I left it in my hiding place. I wanted to throw it away, but I couldn't bring myself to. It won't turn on any more. It's probably dead," the boy explained. Can you bring it to me?" Ian asked hopefully. The boy, pondering, looked at the stranger's uniform again, and then nodded. He ran around the corner. Ian jumped up, frightened the boy would simply run away, but he came back in a flash. In the child's hands was a large phone, the latest model. It was indeed discharged, but buying a charger for such a model wasn't difficult. Ian didn't know what he held. A false lead or the right cue. Nevertheless, he didn't hesitate. He held out his hand to the boy. "All right, Cole. You're my witness now. Will you come with me? I'll take care of business first, then we'll figure out what to do with you."
"What do you mean?"
Cole gasped. "Exactly what I said. You think I'd leave you after learning you're sleeping in alleys? Children shouldn't live on the streets." Cole frowned.
"I have a house, but I run away a lot. I can't live there,"
he confessed, then hesitantly added,
"Uncle Sasha drinks too much, and then he beats me, and worse."
"Uncle Sasha, is it? Your mother's boyfriend?" Ian guessed. Cole nodded, rubbing his hands as if cold. Noticing the dirt on his fingers, he tried to scrub it off with his nails, but to no avail.
"Yes, he used to be in prison. He and Mum wrote letters to each other. She was thrilled when he got out, said I'd have a daddy, and there'd be a man in the house. But Uncle Sasha, he's cruel. He drinks, and Mum started drinking with him too. He invites his friends over to play cards. Last time I ran away because he threw a bottle at me."
Ian shuddered at the image. "What about your mother?"
"Mum loves him more than me. She defends him, even when he's wrong."
"I hate to ask, but don't you have a real dad?" Ian inquired, knowing the answer was unlikely to be pleasant.
"Dad was—"
The boy looked up at Ian and smiled, wide and sincere.
"Dad was a sailor, like you. I'll be a sailor someday too. When Daddy was with us, everything was fine."
The boy's face darkened momentarily, then he added,
"Daddy died at sea. So please be careful, okay?"
The boy's concern touched invisible strings in Ian's soul. Too many feelings and emotions had washed over him in this interminably long day. They were like a huge, overwhelming wave. It was getting harder and harder to cope. "Right. Well, the plan stands. You're coming with me. We'll charge the phone first, then figure out the next steps. For now, you'll stay with me and Rachel. She's my fiancée, but she's in the hospital currently," Ian said decisively. In the end, Ian took Cole home. He fed him, bathed him, and dressed him in oversized but clean clothes. Ian then sent the boy to sleep in the living room, tucking him into fresh linens. He even found a set of his old children's underwear in the loft, already laundered, which should have been used for rags long ago. However, it had a faded Spider-Man print that delighted the boy. When the child fell asleep, the phone turned on. Alas, the device was locked. Ian was at a loss, but then he remembered the policeman's number. Not really expecting help, he decided to dial it. Frank answered, not immediately, and with a full mouth.
"Hello?"
"Hello, Frank," Ian began, as if calling a friend. "It's Ian, we met today." Judging by the sounds, the policeman chewed more vigorously, then swallowed his dinner. "I didn't think you'd call, and so soon at that." "Neither did I, but here's the thing. Is there a way to hack into a phone?" Frank snorted. "Let's pretend you're not asking a policeman to commit phone hacking. I'm too intrigued." "So can someone do it?" Ian pressed, having no time for jokes. Frank sighed. "I think fate sent me to you. I can. But which phone and why?" Ian outlined the situation. Frank responded instantly, saying he was ready to come. Ian texted him the address and waited. He had smoked only 2 cigarettes when Frank's car appeared in the courtyard, squeezing into a free space between the residents' cars. Within half an hour, Frank had accessed the phone. Both young men were shocked by what they found inside. Numerous photos and videos of girls. The device's owner sometimes alone, sometimes with friends, had stalked victims, attacked them, and filmed everything. Each time he took a trophy. Ian couldn't bring himself to watch the last video. It featured Rachel. He knew he could never forget if he did. He trusted Frank with this task. They quickly identified the owner from the pictures and data on the phone. It turned out to be Tom McShane, a politician's son who had already been flagged by the police several times for drunk driving and public intoxication. However, his father had always found a way to get him off. Tom had even been to rehab a couple of times, but it hadn't helped. This time, McShane couldn't buy his way out. The evidence was too strong. A search of his apartment uncovered Rachel's wedding ring, along with other trophies of the scoundrel. Frank Reed, who had been updating Ian on the investigation, called in the evening to have him identify the evidence. Ian confirmed that he had personally bought the ring. "You can collect it when the investigation is over," said Frank. "For now it's evidence." "No, I don't want it. I'll buy another one," Ian replied, shaking his head, unwilling to even touch the jewellery. The trial dragged on, long and tediously. There was reluctance to imprison a politician's son, but justice ultimately prevailed. McShane went to prison. Rachel recovered, aided by extensive sessions with a psychologist, but her main support was her fiancé. He showered her with even more love and tenderness. She and Ian had their wedding, albeit postponed to the end of summer. Frank Reed became Ian's best man, and they forged a strong friendship. Ian was deeply grateful for his friend's help. What became of Cole, the boy who played such a crucial role in this story? Ian and Frank visited his apartment, naively believing they could persuade the child's mother to come to her senses. The policeman even resorted to threatening her ex-convict boyfriend. However, the men soon realized that words alone couldn't help the boy. They were forced to involve Child Protective Services, and Cole was sent to an orphanage. But he didn't stay there long. Accustomed to running away, the boy escaped, and a day later appeared on Rachel and Ian's doorstep. He had memorized the route from his previous stay with them. After careful consideration, Ian and Rachel decided to adopt Cole. He became a wonderful son to them, and 2 years later, a big brother to their daughter Vanessa. Defying doctors' predictions, Rachel and Ian had a healthy, beautiful daughter. Many years later, Cole would become a sailor, following in the footsteps of both his biological and adoptive fathers. Vanessa would become a designer. But that's not the most important part. What matters most is that both children grew up in a happy, loving family. As for the past, it remains in the past. It's better not to dwell on it, but to look forward to a bright future.